Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the Form I-9 requirements and tips. My name is Jason Eisenhut, and I work in the Human Resources Department at Employco. We provide outsourced payroll, human resources, and benefit services to a variety of small and mid-sized employers across the country. We are also a proud partner of Exhibition Services and Contractors Association. One of the benefits of our partnership is our ability to provide ESCA members with the HR training sessions just like this. With that, we will get started. So the topics for today's session, we'll start off with an overview of the Form I-9, the instructions for sections 1, 2, and 3. What are the retention requirements? How long do you need to keep the forms, and how can you keep them? What are the different options for storage? And then we'll wrap up with some frequently asked questions. Okay, so the overview of the Form I-9, the purpose is to verify the identity and employment authorization of every new hire that you hire at your company anytime after November of 1986. That was the starting period of the Form I-9. The penalty, so for non-compliance, there could be civil fines and or criminal penalties depending on how severe the action is. All right. Section 1, that's the first page of the actual form. This is the section that the employee must complete no later than the first day that they're on the job and not before accepting the job offer. So as soon as you work out a job offer with the employee on the terms of the pay and start date and things like that, as soon as the job offer has been finalized with the new hire, at that point, the employee can, even though they haven't started work yet, could start working on Section 1 of the Form I-9. At the latest, you need that completed section from them no later than their first day of employment. Some key pieces on this Section 1, the first page. A couple key parts that employees oftentimes miss is entering NA or not applicable in any fields that are unanswered. So sometimes other last names used if they don't have any other last names, like a maiden name, or if they don't have an apartment number. The employee should be writing or entering NA in any of those fields. And obviously a signature and a date at the bottom is a key part that sometimes people forget. Okay, for Section 2, the second page, this is the section where the employer completes the Form I-9. This is where the employer reviews the documents that the employee presents, whether or not it's a passport, which would satisfy List A, or maybe a combination of driver's license and social security card, which would satisfy List B and C. In any event, the employer needs to review those documents and complete Section 2 within 3 business days of the employee's first day of employment. And the company or their authorized representative must physically examine the documents. So the driver's license or the passport, someone from the company or their authorized representative must physically look at those documents in person. Section 3 is optional. It is not required. This is a section where if you need to re-verify someone, which means maybe their authorization document has expired and you need to look at that, or if you've rehired an employee within the last 3 years, you have the option for rehires to, if they've been hired within the last 3 years of the original I-9 being completed, to dig out the old version and then you can complete this Section 3, the re-verification or rehire section, or you can just complete a whole new I-9 and start from scratch. The retention requirements in terms of storage options, you can choose to have the new hire and you as the employer complete a paper form, and then you keep that original paper form. Typically, we recommend that you keep those in a binder. Just the I-9s by themselves in the binder. Don't commingle maybe a W-4 direct deposit form or their medical enrollment information. All the I-9s of all the employees should be kept in one binder together. Or if you don't want to keep the hard copy, you can complete the form and then scan it, and then you can destroy the original paper form. But kind of the second or third bullet point options, if you're saving the forms electronically, make sure that your electronic saving meets the government's requirements in terms of being confidential and secure. The third bullet point, complete and save the form electronically. So although you need to physically, as the employer, physically review and examine the documents like the driver's license or passport, Both the employee and employer you do have the option of completing the Form I-9 electronically with an electronic signature, again, as long as it meets the government's requirements. In the middle column, copying documentation. So in here, documents, we mean, example, the driver's license or passport. You can, as an employer, choose to retain. You can make photocopies of those and keep them in the same Form I-9 binder, or keep electronic copies on maybe your network drive. But if you do that, if you do make copies of the employee's documents, you have to do it for everyone. So it's either all employees or no employees. And then in terms of the length of time, keep all the Forms I-9 as long as the person is working for your company. But then after they leave your company, keep the Form I-9 the later of either 3 years after the date of hire or 1 year after the date of employment has ended. All right, well, let's start with some frequently asked questions, FAQs. Does the employee need to complete every field in Section A or Section 1? The answer is most fields are required with the exception of the employee's email address and telephone number. Those 2 fields are optional, but all the rest are required. And for any field that is not applicable, maybe the employee doesn't have another last name, as a reminder, ask the employee to write NA or not applicable in that field instead of leaving it blank. How do I handle mistakes on the form? So if you go back through and you're going through an audit, or several months after the new hire, you have a stack on your desk that no one ever got around to. If you find a mistake, draw a line through it, draw a line through the incorrect information, enter the correct information, and then initial and date. And if it's something that's a little bit more detailed, you could always attach, maybe you can type something in Microsoft Word and attach and say, see attached. You can put a little handwriting in the margin for providing a further explanation. Can the employer or authorized representative complete Section 2 without physically reviewing the employee's documents in person? This oftentimes happens with remote workers. So let's say your office is in New York and you hire someone in California. Can you have the person scan their own driver's license and send you a copy of their passport? Nope. The answer is no. The employer must physically, in person, review the document. Now, in those situations, you can have a remote I-9 service do it as long as the person is authorized. You don't have to have someone who physically or technically works for your employer. You can authorize someone who doesn't work for your company review those I-9 documents. But any of those cases, like for a remote worker, we highly suggest that you review the authorized representative's work to make sure it is correct. Can I fire an employee who fails to produce the required documents? And the answer is yes. You can terminate an employee who fails to produce the documents within 3 business days because that's your deadline as the employer. You must have a completed I-9 form on file within 3 business days after the person starts. So if you don't have that from the employee, if they fail to produce their driver's license or a passport or some document showing they're legally eligible to work in the United States, you can and should probably terminate their employment. Can I use abbreviations when completing the form? Yes, you can, as long as the abbreviations used on the form are widely understood. So some common examples are DL for driver's license or SSA for Social Security Administration. So those are some common examples, but yes, you can use abbreviations as long as they're widely accepted. Does the Form I-9 come in different languages? The form has been created in English and Spanish. However, the Spanish version is only for use in Puerto Rico. So if you have a Spanish-speaking person and your employer or your company is located outside of Puerto Rico, maybe in one of our 50 states, you still need to use the English version, but you can use a translator. The new hire could use a translator to help them complete the form, even if they speak Spanish as their primary language. With that, we'll wrap it up with some key points to remember. Ensure Section 1 is the form is completed by the employee by the end of their first day. They can complete before their first day, but not before they've accepted the job offer. But the end of their first day is their deadline to complete Section 1, and you as the employer need to complete Section 2 by the end of the 3rd business day. And even for your remote workers, do not rely on a photocopy or scan copy to complete Section 2. Someone needs to physically look at, holding it in person, their documents they present, whether or not that's a passport or driver's license or birth certificate, things like that. Now, if you discover that either the employer or the employee have made a mistake on the I-9 form, review that. You can contact us. My contact information will be on the next slide. Review guidance and make sure you're doing it correctly in terms of crossing out the incorrect information, initialing, dating it. It is definitely worse to throw out an incorrect form than to correct it and fix it going forward. And conduct an audit. So to help you find if there are errors, maybe once a year, conduct an audit. Use a company like ours, Employco, to facilitate the audit we look for all the time with our clients. We help them with audits. We go through their I-9 binder. Some clients don't even have a binder. They're just kind of loose pieces of paper. We make recommendations and help them fix that. And provide training for anyone in your company, even authorized representatives outside of your company who will be acting on behalf of you to filling out that section 2, the employer section. Provide training to them of what to look for in the documents, what to look for on the section 1, the employee form, to make sure that both the employee and employer forms are filled out correctly. With that, it concludes the webinar. We hope you found it informative and helpful. My contact information is shown there on the screen. My phone number is 630-286-7341, and my email is at the bottom. If you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.